Hello, this is Justin Langseth, VP of the Snowflake Data Exchange Business Development, here talking today with Adam Fisher from Demyst Data. Adam is a partner of ours. Demyst is a great partner for Data Exchange, and we're going to have a quick discussion about how Demyst and Snowflake are working together to bring external data from Demyst to our customers. So welcome, Adam, to our podcast today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks, Justin.
Great. Great, Adam. I thought we could have a little chat here. Maybe you could just start and tell us a little bit about Demyst and some of the data that you have available and how you're working with us.
Sounds great. Yeah, thanks for having me. So starting at the top, Demyst Data is a enterprise or external data as a service company. Been around for about 8 years or so. About 50 people, and we're headquartered in New York City. We also have offices in Melbourne, Hong Kong, Singapore, and we go to London quite often lately. We focus on data about people, places, including commercial and residential properties, and especially focus on small business, which is a really popular topic for us these days. We have a rather large team of data strategists who spend almost all of their time just onboarding and contracting with new and novel data providers, so all the ones that we think are really cool and have just really awesome data about all the topics I just mentioned. We have about 900 commercial contracts in all, and we're excited to be working with Snowflake to move a good number of them into the Snowflake Data Exchange. Just walking through a couple of these.
Where are you today, actually? Where are you located right now? You're in New York?
I'm in New York at our headquarter office. Yep.
Awesome. Good to hear.
Yeah. So typically we find that, external data, no secret, is this next wave of value creation. We're really focused on data about helping people find and acquire new customers, and in some cases get more information about existing customers. But typically people deploy the type of third-party data for pre-fill, underwriting, so lots of risk and insurance use cases, especially for consumer and commercial lending. Anytime someone maybe wants to offer somebody a new credit card, we have a ton of data providers on verification, KYC, and AML. And then also things that help with claims adjudication and preventing fraud and things like that. This is meant to be just a picture of kind of the Lumascape, if you will, of some of the data providers that we work with. This is by no way exhaustive, but as you can see, we've got something I think we're approaching maybe 600 different data products that Demyst has in total. Everything from data about patents to, we have one new provider that actually takes a TV news script from something like 2,200 different news channels all over the world and translates them into different languages and uses NLP to find out about adverse media. So really data exists today on just about anything. And Demyst is that party that is out there just scouring the world and finding all the greatest sources and using our kind of common contract to bring them in and mobilize them for users like those that love using Snowflake. One thing that we find is that if large enterprises are kind of left to their own devices to bring external data on by themselves, we find that it might cost them something between $150,000 and $200,000 per data product, just because it can take a really long time to just discover and screen and evaluate and go through all the legal process that's often required to just sign NDAs and design experiments. And that's a big part of what Demyst kind of facilitates. And I would say that through our partnership with Snowflake, it's even faster and easier because you can essentially go into the data environment you're already used to for BI and analysis and easily just grab and link to external data and find all kinds of data that is applicable to your use case.
Hey, Adam, question for you on this. What kind of people or personas or roles within companies are typically kind of leading this process, looking for interesting data sets, bringing them in, driving this kind of budget? Is it the BI team, the chief data officer? Who do you typically see kind of doing this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically, we engage with a lot of members of the chief data office, if a company even has one. A lot of times, with an insurance company, they tend to have these big, what they call product organizations, where they have product managers that may be, working on a whole line of insurance or maybe a new insurance product, if you can even call it that. So we would engage with those product managers. So they're kind of business leaders that are looking for ways to, find new customers or, find out information about customers that they can either market to or ways they can, enhance their underwriting. So typically that then trickles down to working with data scientists. And then we also work pretty closely with data engineers as they begin to, move massive amounts of this data. But yeah, the typical personas are probably like chief data officer, sometimes like a chief strategy officer. We've also engaged with like chief marketing officers in some capacity. But yeah, those are our favorite personas.
Great. So I guess you can tell us how Demyst and Snowflake working together can make this easier, faster, cheaper, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Like one thing we talked about with regard to all the different data that we have, we have hundreds of data products, and all told something like, maybe it's like approaching 150,000 different unique attributes. So what we're doing with Snowflake is, and I'll show you this in a second, I think, we are moving certain kind of tiles or representations of these data products into the Snowflake Data Exchange so that a regular Snowflake user who's using their first party data can very easily kind of search the Snowflake Data Exchange or step into the Snowflake Data Exchange and see all kinds of other data products that might be applicable to their use case. So for example, if let's say it's a property insurance use case and you've got first party information about a bunch of properties, we have a number of different property data sets, and we've been moving several of them over into the Snowflake Data Exchange where if you have something as simple as like an address or in some cases even just like a lat long of a property, you could enrich it with hundreds or even probably thousands of attributes about that property. And maybe you want to know like what county it's in or what the roof, the last time the roof was been worked on or something like that. We have data that can kind of tell you all of these things, maybe like the presence of a swimming pool or not. All these types of attributes come through in these various data products.
Cool. Do you want me to flip over and actually show some of this inside the Snowflake Data Exchange? Anything else you want to share here first?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great. If you'll stop sharing, I'll push the magic share button. Oh, actually, you don't even need to. I can just do it myself. Here we go. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Excellent. So so this is the Snowflake Data Exchange tab. You can see the tab within the Snowflake user interface. It sits between the Shares tab and the Data Warehouses tab here inside the Snowflake GUI. And Snowflake Data Exchange has a lot of different kind of data in it. And you can see actually one of the first three here listed, it is in alphabetical order, is I think that data set, is that the data set you were just talking about? The Atom, or one of them, the Atom commercial
data
set,
one of them.
Atom?
Yeah, it's a great source of property information. They get a lot of their data from public record, mainly from the different counties within the U.S. There's something like over 3,000 counties in the U.S. and they all kind of have maybe a different format for how they track their information, but these guys are really good at kind of coercing all that data together and have great data about tax records and tax processor and recorder information. So just basically anytime property changes hands or anytime you pay your property taxes, you're kind of reporting all that information about a property.
Oh, wow. So if I'm a Snowflake user and here in the Snowflake interface and I want to use that data, I can come to this data exchange. I can see that this data set exists. And then if I click on it, we can now see some more details. And I see that, let's see, a description here, links to documentation and support if I have questions about this, right? And then I can actually scroll down a bit and see some sample queries if I use this data set. So it looks like there's an example of looking at commercial properties that are worth between $500,000 and $1 million, maybe kind of mid-range commercial properties. Looks like an example query here where I could use this data set to look for borrowers who have defaulted on previous property payments. So that's interesting. Properties that have boat access. Well, that's interesting. That really shows the depth of some of the data you have. Like you can figure out which properties are actually right on the water, and you can pull up your boat up to. Yep. Pretty fascinating. So then if I'm a Snowflake customer, I can just get access to this data set by clicking on this blue button up here. So I'll click that. And Adam, do I have to pay at this point to get access to this Atom data?
Nope. Luckily the contracts that Demyst has kind of in aggregate across our body of data providers, we have standard terms where we work with our data providers, and we know that, users like those on the Snowflake platform are really interested in, before they buy data, they just want to see some of it and be able to run the types of queries that you were just kind of clicking on. So our agreements are one where, we're able to facilitate the provision of this data for non-commercial use in a way that allows you to at least kind of understand what the data is or might be able to do for you. And then you can engage in a conversation about actually buying it.
Oh, I see. So I can see, I just clicked on it. And so now I can see the tables that are in this data set. I can click down and I can see the columns that are in each data set. And then it looks like if I go to the worksheets tab in Snowflake, now that I've clicked on this data set, I see that actually this data set shows up as a inbound shared data share in Snowflake. You can tell by this little cylinder with the little tiny arrow pointing into it. That tells me that this data set is not data that I, as a Snowflake user, have myself loaded into Snowflake, but it's coming in through the data exchange, through this share. And one of the cool things about this is at this point, I'm not making a copy of this data. I'm really just able to query it. I'm directly from the data that you're already stored and that you're refreshing in your Demyst data account. And so here again, I see the tables. I click on a table. I can see the different columns below here. So it looks like a lot of interesting data about tax assessments, about profiles, about pre-foreclosures. So that's interesting. And kind of just other more general data. And then I pasted in one of those sample queries that we had before. Let me just turn on my virtual warehouse here so I can actually run the query as in my Snowflake account. It just takes a few seconds to turn on virtual warehouse. There it is, it's turned on. And now if I take this query, this is the one that gives me the values between, let's say, 500,000 and $1 million. I think it was one of the sample queries we looked at earlier. And I've run this against that Atom data set, and now I can see the results. Looks like I have an identifier of the property confidence score. What is the confidence score? Do you know, Adam? What does that represent?
I think that might have to do with when we pulled this original sample, we had linked the address. So the way that typically, if you think about the full data set here that we have from Atom, it's got, I don't know, 155 million addresses in it and maybe well over like 1 billion rows. So the way that we have to kind of query that data set is we might say, here's an address that we're interested in. And then we would kind of call, in this case, the Atom has their own entity resolution API, where you would feed it the address, the street number, the street name, the city, the state, the zip code. And then it would come back and then give the Atom ID that it thinks corresponds to that address that you input. And the confidence score describes their confidence in kind of that ND resolution. So it'd be rare that you might ever see like 100%, but anything over 50 is probably pretty good. It can vary depending on like geographies and things like that. But we bring that back to like in some cases you might decide, I only want to see like you're doing the confidence that's higher than a certain threshold. Right.
And of course I need to refresh my SQL knowledge here to actually be able to add that. There we go. And no problem. All good. So I just filtered this data set from Atom based on confidence score greater than 80%. That's interesting. And I was able to do that just on the fly based on my, just change that criteria and rerun the query. So this is pretty interesting. It gives me looks like estimated value of these commercial properties. And then you said there should be maybe it's this table down here that gives me the name of the property. Is that right? Here we go. Okay, I see. So this table, the Atom expanded profile, that's giving me the street name and that identifier that could link back to that valuation table we just saw a second ago, along with city and state. So this is how I could then join it, right, to my own data. If I had data about these same cities, I could now join through this table to get data about commercial properties in those same cities.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, very, very cool. So this lets people just immediately discover this data, because maybe I didn't even know that Atom data existed. I can in the Snowflake Data Exchange here come in, discover this, look at the samples, and then immediately query it and even join it to my own data, just with a few clicks right here through the Snowflake interface. And as I was scrolling down earlier, I noticed some other data sets that you guys are helping us provide. Looks like there's one here from Info Group. Can you tell us a little bit about what Info Group is? It's also powered by Demyst, as we see here.
Yeah, Info Group's a really interesting provider. So they focus almost exclusively on small businesses, like especially the types of businesses that are not publicly traded, like the coffee shop down the street or the restaurant down the street, typically like retail organizations. They originally got their start by trying to help kind of marketing. So I think, and they still kind of do this today. They essentially like go through what used to be and now is more electronic, but like the phone book. So imagine like I think it was the yellow pages. They would essentially like go through the yellow pages and just in order, like call every single company, just call them up on the phone and just ask them like basic questions like, hey, what are your operating hours? Like, who's the owner of the business? Like, do you sell coffee, or what kind of restaurant are you? And they still do that today. So they have a massive call center in Omaha, Nebraska, and I've been to it. It's like the size of a football field. I think they have like something like 1,500 call center reps that basically just call companies all day long automatically, ask them those questions, and they have this amazing kind of super unique data set of the 15 million businesses that they have confirmed within the US that they believe are active because they've called them within the last several months and somebody picked up the phone and they confirmed what they knew about them. They also have a list of like all the businesses that, they're either waiting to call or like they called and then someone confirmed that they went out of business. So we actually have Demyst, we have their full data set. So we have on our back end, we have like something like a 60 million record data set that's everything, not just the active businesses, but the suspect ones and the ones that are going out of business. But this is a really powerful data set if you do anything with small businesses, whether it's marketing or even insurance or lending, just to know, who is the decision maker at this business, how many people work at this business. They ask that question too. They have a great model for estimating the revenue of a business. The biggest competitor, or maybe similar kind of data set, would be something like a Dun & Bradstreet, but because they call every business individually, it's a pretty unique kind of offering. It's a really interesting data set.
Cool. So if I click on this tile, I can see some more information. Let's see. It looks like similar things you're just telling about: age of the business, credit or linked loans that they might have, contacts, the point of contact at the business. That's pretty interesting. So this data set could be pretty useful. Let's see what kind of sample queries they have. This one, first one, business types with the highest shrinking rate. Does that mean that the revenue or the employee count is going down? I guess if we read the query here, we can see what it means, huh?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those factors. So, because they're calling the same business, over time and again, they also take a snapshot of their data, I think on an annual basis. So they're able to kind of look at like a 3-year trend of growth or a 3-year trend of shrinkage, maybe in this case. So, they have a lot of good kind of indicators that might help you as a business owner decide, hey, do I want to market to a business that's growing, or maybe I do have a product that a business that's shrinking would care about. So they've kind of done all the hard work to figure out, which of the active businesses out there in the world kind of fit those conditions.
Got it. So if I join this to my own data set and I see that some percentage of my customer base, their own businesses of those customers are shrinking, I might want to do things to look for new customers so I don't depend on those. Or I guess the next sample query that's here is company types that are most bankruptcy. So again, another indicator, if I know or join to my customer base or my prospect base and I see that I'm marketing to the types of companies that are likely to go bankrupt, maybe I want to refine my strategy, I would say. And then I'm sure there are other data points in here where have the more positive angle in terms of what businesses are growing and what industries might be the most optimistic places for me to focus on. Huh?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. And so this data set looks like there's a button here that says request. So this data set I need to request access for. So maybe if I say, hey, I'm Justin from Snowflake, I'd like to get access and press this request button. And when I press this item, what happens next? Do I get immediately access to this data set, or does something else have to happen?
It's not like quite immediate, but luckily the power of the Snowflake platform is one where we've got this great integration with the Demyst system. So, when you fill this out, it actually sends a note directly to a queue at Demyst, and then we're able to kind of connect back to this request and figure out how to fulfill the request and give you more information about the the info group product. And of course, like I said, with the Atom data, because all of our contracts allow for some amount of data to be evaluated at no cost, and we're happy to kind of honor that one kind of through this other process.
So this allows you at Demyst to help kind of work with me as a person requesting this data to figure out maybe what part of the info group data is most interesting to me, figure out the most effective way for me to test that out, given what I'm trying to do with it, and maybe have a more personalized kind of engagement versus just giving me immediate access to some subset of the data set that might not actually be the one that is useful for my needs. That kind of
that's right.
Part of what you're talking about? Yeah, that's very cool.
Awesome. Yeah, so like kind of we talked about with the Atom data, and that one kind of comes from straightforward source of just like this property tax record, but the info group data is amalgamated from many sources, including them calling these businesses. They have a great backend source of all kinds of like public data that has to do with like when the company was registered with the respective Secretary of State in that state. They even have things like UCC liens that also come from the Secretary of State. So yeah, depending on like what your use case is, definitely could help to talk to a data expert at Demyst to kind of figure out how to orient you and bring you back a sample that really is going to fit with what your use case is.
It sounds like a great value-added service that your company provides too, in conjunction with these data sets. So we've been great. It's been great working with you at Demyst. I know we have multiple data sets that you've helped power into our platform, even beyond the two that we just highlighted. There's some other stuff in here as well. The Snowflake Data Exchange also has lots of other data sets, weather data, financial data, and stuff that's really, really unique, like hotel, rental car prices, and just kind of looking at what happens to be on the screen right now. Adam, if you're kind of advising other providers of data in terms of working with the Snowflake Data Exchange, do you have any kind of advice or best practices or any kind of other kind of lessons learned about how, as a provider of data, you can best kind of leverage the Snowflake Data Exchange?
Yeah, well, you definitely want to have, a tile for one, just so that folks can kind of discover you. There's so many data providers out there, and I would say, even in this case, as we look at these tiles, they're all so unique and so kind of powerful in their own respective ways. So it's really important to kind of help educate, this massive new crop of kind of data-driven professionals out there, data scientists, anybody that's in an environment like Snowflake who's processing queries and asking questions of their data. What a great opportunity to kind of have external data in that same environment so that they can kind of bring those two efforts together. So yeah, having a tile and just having an ability to educate the market about what your data product does and why it's unique is of course valuable.
Well, great. Adam, thank you so much for chatting today. It's been so great working with your team. We're just getting started, as you know, and we look forward to adding more and more assets from the Demyst data portfolio onto our exchange. And we've already gotten great feedback from our customers and working with some of the initial data sets that you've put up there. So thanks so much for joining us and your partnership with Snowflake. We look forward to working together with you for the years to come.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks. Bye.